Bucks Row. Now it's called Durwood Street. On the corner there was a pub called the Roebuck, been demolished, replaced by these new flats. The street itself is more or less the same width as it always was. It's blocked off halfway down by a crosswell project that's been going on for years. Eventually it'll be open again. Just down there we can see the board school, the only surviving building from 1888. As you can hear, I'm inside a Sainsbury's in Whitechapel, where you get the best vantage point to look at the scene of the Polly Nichols murder. And I'm going to replay for you a video I did last year with a good colleague, Chris Bolister, looking at the Bucks Row murder. Thank you.
Nice sign, C5.
What's that stand for?
Just so happens.
What's that stand for?
The canonical 5. Just so happens I've got a book here for you, mate.
Oh, thank you.
Have a read of that. Very
thank you, Chris. Chris here.
Thank you very much.
Known on the various forums as what? Moonbeggar.
Occasionally.
Occasionally. Although he's an Arsenal fan, he can be trusted on some things. Not very many. He's given me this
trophy
book.
cabinet.
He's given me this book. Is this one of your trophies?
Yep. I got it out of Tottenham trophy cabinet.
It says it's in a library.
Hang on, this is incriminating evidence now.
Is this stolen? Anyway, it's got a chapter in it. It's from 1987. A chapter on the Bucks Row murder. The first chapter in the book. In the book, typical Ripperologist treatment of the murder. It says, for example, George Cross turned into Bucks Row. George Cross, not Charles Cross, not Charles Lechmere. George Cross, because this author has used the Times report which referred to him as George Cross.
And George Cross owned the White Hart.
By coincidence, down at Aldgate. It says, in the poor light you saw what appeared to be an untidy pile of clothing. That doesn't appear in any report. He claimed he saw a tarpaulin. Thinking he might have stumbled across something of use or even value, he looked quickly both ways, and seeing no one had crossed the road to take a look. As he bent over the clothing, he must, according to this, he must have been right by the corpse or the body of Polly Nichols. His heart gave a lurch as he saw it was a human being, a woman. If I said he bent over the body, I'd be in trouble for making things up. At the same moment he heard heavy footsteps approaching, and more by instinct than anything else, he quickly stepped over the form, the body, and hid in the shadow of a wide doorway where the body lay. In other words, he hid over the gate in Brown Stable Yard here, which, not here, further down there. I can't get down there because of the building works that are here for the Crosswell project that were here when they did that excellent documentary, the Missing Evidence. This building work's been going on forever. When the approaching workman came nearer, George Cross recognised a fellow worker. He recognised him, and there's no evidence.
Best mate.
There's no evidence he knew John Paul. He recognised him according to this. John Paul. He came out from his hiding place, this new hiding place, greeted his friend, and then drew his attention to the person laying in the pavement. We'll find someone, a volunteer, in a moment to be the body.
Although none of it matches up with the actual inquest report.
Yeah. Saying it was a woman, but he couldn't decide whether she was drunk or ill. The two men bent over the body, cross-touched her cheek, lifted her arm, curiously lifeless and limp, and it dropped with an unnatural weightlessness when he let it go. The two men looked at each other. Something told George Cross that the woman was dead, but John Paul wasn't so sure. Anyway, it goes on with further elaborate invented detail. They went off and they found P.C. Misen misspelt with an S instead of a Z, and told him. And they went back with P.C. Misen. According to this account, they went back with P.C. Misen to the body. But before they, with P.C. Misen, went back to the scene of the crime, P.C. Neil had found the body. And he found, and this is another interesting detail, the constable had no doubt that this is PC Neal, that the woman was dead, but he felt her hand and arm, and although they were warm as toasted crumpet. As warm as toasted crumpet, he later testified, which is new to me.
Yeah,
is that new to you?
Yeah, I've never heard that one.
He saw a great gash from her throat with blood still oozing from it, and he noticed the reek of sour gin, another interesting detail. And then it goes on about PC Thane, it misspelled as Hain.
And they both come back to the body.
Yeah. And so on and so on. This is the way the murder of Polly Nichols is routinely treated in Ripper books. This is one of the worst examples, but it's by no means an isolated example. But we will recreate the scene and try and find out some of the truth, the logistics of this scene, to see what may have happened.
Through the inquest.
Crossrail.
The quiet zone.
That is what, some things echo through the years, don't they? Crossrail. According to the testimony of Charles Cross, who is really Charles Lechmere, of course, when he noticed the body of Polly Nichols laying on the pavement here, he was in the middle of the road and he noticed Robert Paul
40 yards away.
40 yards away down this direction. They met each other, came up to the body and touched it. This is what we're going to recreate, the logistics of this.
How it was spelt out in the inquest.
By the various witnesses. And I think it was a rather strange meeting of these two, which is one of the pointers, in my opinion, to his guilt. But you've been looking at this for a long time as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
So we're going to have a little look at this. According to Charles Cross's Lechmere's inquest testimony, he was in the middle of the road, he was walking up Bucks Row, he saw what he thought was a tarpaulin, crossed over to the middle, noticed it was a body of a woman, who turns out to be Polly Nichols, laying on the pavement there. At the same time, when he was in the middle of the road, he says he heard or saw down the street there, in that direction, Robert Paul, who turned out to be Robert Paul, walking towards him. And he came onto the pavement, and there can we see Chris as Robert Paul walking down. The road was a little bit narrow, the pavement was somewhat narrower, half the width of this. So while I'm sitting here waiting for him to clomp up in his hobnail boots, he came towards him. Robert Paul thought he was going to be mugged or attacked. He moved away. Lechmere tapped him on the shoulder. And then they went up to the body. This actually works out properly. But according to the evidence, Paul touched the legs, tried to pull the skirt down and the lower half of the body, and the evidence is, I think, from the inquest, that Lechmere touched this, so the belt bent down like this and touched the body, and then went off to find Pissing Lizard. Do you disagree with that?
No, that's how
We actually ended up walking naturally to the body in that direction. There's it.
So there's no on this side of the street. That was with the documentary was at fault.
Yeah. We're at the end of Durwood Street, Bucks Row, when Paul came out of this door over here. Where that door is where Paul would have come up. He lived in Foster Street, which is just around there. He'd have come out where that door is, that silver door roughly, walked across the road.
Same route as Lechmere, yeah.
Yeah, if Lechmere's telling the truth. And then, by the time Paul got here, if Lechmere's telling the truth, Lechmere would have been roughly 40 yards in front of him, which is where that telegraph pole is, just this side of the van. So Paul would have come round here with Lechmere in front of him, and he would have traipsed up the road, both in their hobnail boots, both in this narrow road. Can you come and see how narrow this road would have been? It would have been a narrow road, narrower than now. There would have been very
flanked either side,
quite tall. There'd have been very little ambient noise in the background. It's quite noisy with traffic and people. There would have been deadly quiet. Paul is walking 40 yards, according to the testimony.
Yeah.
You can speculate what may have happened. According to Lechmere's testimony,
I still believe it's flexible. I still think
you might like to be flexible on it if you want to be generous to him. Either way, say he was 50 yards in front of him.
Yeah.
He's tramping up in his hobnail boots. Logically, he would have heard him. Where the murder scene was way down there. Later on, PC Neil, at the crime scene, which is over 100 yards down there, about 110 yards down there, he said he heard PC Thane walk across the road behind us here. He heard him at that distance. So if you say
police boots are different.
They're work boots. They're work boots. They're working men in there.
I think because
they weren't wearing slippers.
Yeah, but in Berners Street, the lady said she could hear the police measured boots walking past, so the people knew the
maybe
sound of the police.
But nevertheless, Neil heard Thane at 110 metres. It's realistic that Cross would have heard, Lechmere I should say, heard Paul at 40, 50 metres. If you want to stretch it, he should have heard him, shouldn't he? Walking all the way out behind him in this narrow, quiet road.
If he had hobnail boots on.
Yeah, whichever one. Whatever type of boots they have.
Well, there's
ballet slippers.
Yeah, you never know. You can. Not too many people measure. The only people that was got noticed for their clunky feet was the police. Maybe.
For those who are interested, this is the book that Chris presented me with, Jack the Ripper, 100 Years of Mystery. Actually, it came out in 1987, so it's 99 Years of Mystery, by Peter Underwood, who was the late Peter Underwood, a very distinguished writer on parapsychology, quite a big literary figure, member of the Savage Club, and for over 30 years was the president of the Ghost Club, the oldest ghost club in the world. And you can see his books were largely dominated by ghostly matters, and to this day several Jack the Ripper tour guides that I know are members of the Ghost Club. So I'm not particularly picking out Peter Underwood's book for criticism, because the mistakes that he made are common to many Ripper books by many authors. And just to highlight the provenance of this particular edition that Chris gave me from Islington Libraries. From Sainsbury's Whitechapel, Edward Stow signing out from the House of Lechmere. Don't forget to subscribe and share, and please keep watching. Thank you.